Warning, this content may be disturbing to some audiences. Subscribe. If you dare. I paid off her credit cards when we were dating and she cried for me being so nice. It was only like $1,300. Hey everybody, welcome to ANECDOSED. People ask Reddit. Rich people of Reddit who married someone significantly poorer. What surprised you about their previous way of life? Number 1. One of the things that surprised me about my partner who was significantly poorer than me was how he made his financial decisions based around the 3 paycheck months. If you're paid every 2 weeks, most months you get 2 paychecks, and all of your monthly bills and budgeting is based on those 2 paychecks. But twice a year there are 3 paydays in a month, and that's when you can actually solve problems. That's when you can get the car registered, or fix the dryer, or get the cat spayed. The other 10 months you're doing maintenance and trying to scrape by. 3 paycheck months you can actually try to fix problems. Number 2. Commenter. The prevailing mindset in his community growing up that insurance was something only rich people had. Not health insurance, mind you, well, not just health insurance. Auto insurance. Going without it was a way of life for most everyone he knew. Person B. My husband has to constantly remind me that I can go to the doctor whenever I need to instead of just hoping I don't die. Person C. When my husband and I were first dating, he took me to the eye doctor because, as I mentioned, I couldn't see the blackboard in class. When I went outside with my new glasses I almost started crying. I didn't know you could see individual leaves on trees from a distance or blades of grass. Number 3. I was adopted at age 7. I lived in extreme poverty and then all of a sudden I lived with a doctor who bought gifts for birthdays and Christmas. I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know you could go to the store to get food. I just thought you went to the church and had to pray before they gave you a bag of food. Number 4. When the family had people over for dinner, if they ended the prayer before the meal with F.H.B. Amen. It was a signal to let the children know that they don't have enough food for everyone, so take smaller servings and let the guests get a regular serving. FHB equals family, hold back. They were always generous to their friends and didn't let their lack of funds embarrass themselves when doing so. Number 5. Honestly, food insecurity. When we were first married she would get visibly uneasy if the food in the house was running low. She never overrated or anything, she was just always concerned about it. A lot of times when she was younger, she went hungry. On the humorous side though, she hates camping. Her answer is always the same: I camped because it was fun. She camped because they couldn't afford hotels. Number 6. I get giddy with excitement after grocery shopping trips. It just feels so good to have enough food. Though I still have to constantly remind myself I'm allowed to eat it if I'm hungry. I'm a grown-up. I bought it. Food and snacks. We were never allowed to snack between meals and never bought anything extra that wasn't absolutely necessary. My husband had to teach me, you buy something tasty that you don't actually need, and then you can just eat it whenever you feel like. Amazing. I still don't really do it, but it's nice to know I can. Number 7. She and her mother lived with her grandfather to not be homeless because her grandfather owned a house. She was putting community college payments on her credit card and building debt with it. I paid off her credit cards when we were dating and she cried for me being so nice. It was only like $1,300. I bought a condo, then we got married, then we bought a house. I never really considered myself rich until I started dating her and learned that a trip to Wendy's was a treat. I grew up middle class, and we are currently middle class, hey. Number 8. I grew up working class, dad's a welder, mom stayed at home with us, and eating out, even just at McDonald's, was a huge treat. But now that I'm on my own and making money, I can have that treat every day if I want. My fiancé recently pointed this out to me and I'm working on it, but that habit is so damn hard to break. Number 9. More of a funny incident, but I was the poor one. My husband, at the time still my boyfriend, took me out to a very nice restaurant. Waiter asked if I wanted pepper on my Caesar salad that was just made tableside. I said sure and he goes about it. Thing is, I didn't know you had to say stop. My husband slowly realizes this, but decides to see it play out. He did eventually say that I need to say stop. I just thought a Caesar salad was this way as it was my first time even eating a salad that wasn't just iceberg and ranch dressing. It still tasted fine, just a little bit too much pepper, haha. Number 10. Commenter, sandwiches. When I made him a sandwich I only put one thin slice of meat in it. He couldn't believe that was how I had sandwiches growing up. Person B, growing up, We weren't allowed to just eat deli slices, it had to go between 2 pieces of bread because that would fill you up faster and save on meat costs. Person C, your comment just opened up a huge window into my husband for me. He's always railing against me for letting the kids eat lunch meat slices straight from the bag, and I've always wondered what the big deal was. You just made me connect this to his poor childhood. Number 11. I am not well off, but my stepfather is. I was raised by a single mom who spent money on everything and bills were always behind. She just couldn't manage her money at all. In her 50s she met and married a multimillionaire. We are in middle America, so that goes further than maybe in a lot of areas. They have given themselves $10,000 a month budget to live on, living on interest. Own their home. Anyway, once my mom met him and they got all her finance situated and paid off, she won't spend a penny. He spends like it is going out of style. He has actually begged me to take her shopping to get clothes and accessories. She won't do it. She spent more when she was a single mom with nothing. It makes no sense to me. At least buy a new outfit. She is hell-bent to not use a penny of his money. They barely even have any groceries. If they have anything, it is because he buys it for them. She is a retired nurse that gets a retirement and SS, but she won't spend anything. She lives poorer now than any other time in her life. Number 12. Commenter. I fell in love with my university best friend who really didn't have any money. When I got a job, for my birthday I decided to plan a holiday and offered to bring him along. He doesn't know I'm in love with him at all, but maybe I should tell him. Person B. I really feel this one. My family did maybe 2 vacation type trips in 18 years of growing up, and both of those were to places relatively close by, few hours of driving. If it wasn't for a couple of school-sponsored trips, I probably would have never left my region of the US until I was an adult, and I still haven't left the country. I remember in college, there was a school-sponsored trip for a class I was taking that involved air travel. The look on another student's face when I told him I'd never flown before was absolutely priceless. Now, as an adult with a middle-class white-collar job, it still boggles my mind to listen to coworkers talk about all the trips and cruises they take and talk about flying to Disneyland for just a weekend getaway. I can't get myself into the mindset of someone who can actually afford to travel now, because it just hasn't been a part of my life at all. Number 13. I'm from an upper middle-class American family and my husband is from a poor SE Asian family. It is hard for me to wrap my head around how poor they really were when he was growing up. He told me about eating only rice with sugar for meals because they couldn't afford meat. They were probably living off less than 50 cents per day for a family of 5 at times. Number 14. My husband came from a very poor Mexican village. He told me he used to shower outside, because there was no in-house plumbing, and use leaves as toilet paper. I mean, there's poor, and there's my husband's previous life poor. He's been living in the US for 12 years now, but when we first met it was so interesting seeing life through his childlike eyes. Going to the cinema was a huge event for him. Heating food up in a microwave was a totally foreign concept. And staying at fancy hotels when we went on vacation was like whoa. Number 15. Commenter. Hamburger helper. She hates it because it would be her meal 5x a week growing up. I had never even seen HH before I went to college and loved that stuff. 10 for $10 deals are awesome. Person B. My foster daughter was the same way with pasta. She ate so much of it, before we got her, that she hated it. The first meal I made for her on her first night with us. Pasta. She didn't say a word and ate her dinner, but later I found out she didn't like pasta because of how much of it she had eaten before. I always took her grocery shopping so she could pick out stuff she liked, after that. She was shocked when she found out red delicious apples weren't the only variety out there. I think she overdosed on Honeycrisp apples, when I first introduced them to her. Number 16. My husband grew up in a family where they were comfortable but on a strict budget. 6 kids and mom on disability. My family had no budget. One day we were at the grocery store, he always insists on walking up and down every aisle. I finally lost it because he was taking so long and asked him why he did it. Growing up we could only spend $100 a week on groceries for all of us. I always had to put what I wanted back because we couldn't afford it. Now I can afford whatever I want, so I like to look at everything I could have. Took him 10 years to tell me this. I felt like a terrible person. We live in a city with an extremely high cost of living. It's in the top 30 in the world. Getting a family of 4 fed for that much weekly would be a huge stretch here, and his family did an amazing job. Number 17. Commenter. I was with a girl for a while who grew up in a pretty broken home. Still surprises me just how bad her spending habits are. She racks up credit card debt like it's nothing. Person B, same. Had an ex like that and she told me that she needed me to hold on to the money she earned because she would buy stupid shit with it. Her family also spent money stupidly. Her mom would spend every day sleeping until whenever, smoking about a pack a day, and drive about 5 to 7 miles round trip in a Ford pickup truck for her twice daily coffee milkshake from Starbucks. Eventually they had to file for bankruptcy and she was still dumb with money. She would literally shop at the convenience store for groceries. 2-pack toilet paper for $1, other random things for 3-4x the amount. Number 18. My parents were stingy with the air conditioning, and I just didn't understand it. Growing up, we lived with the windows wide open from late April to mid-September, North Georgia mountains, and the attic fan running during the day and early evening. We also didn't have heat. Just 2 wood-burning stoves. Even now, since installing central heating and air, my parents still rarely use them and insist on raising the windows in the spring and summer and building fires in the stoves during the fall and winter. When I started dating my now husband in college and went to his parents' house for the first time to meet them, their central AC broke, so we went out to dinner instead of staying in. It was May and breezy outside, and I asked why we didn't just open up the windows. They all just sort of looked at me, and finally his dad chuckled and said something like, "Yeah, we could, but we don't have any screens on the windows, so we'll be dining with some mosquitoes and other insects if we did that. They live on a lake." We got to talking about their lack of screens, and my concurrent shock, and that was how I found out, at the age of 22, that some people purposely don't screen their houses, for aesthetic reasons. My mother-in-law, bless her souls, thinks they're ugly, and why would you need to open the windows? You have AC. To me, that seemed like true privilege. Make sure to share your personal story in the comments below and have the opportunity to be featured in a future video. Also, if you like these topics, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button to continue seeing more content like this every day. See you next time. Warning, this content may be disturbing to some audiences. Subscribe. If you dare. She can't pick you up, honey, she has a baby in her tummy. And then my little sister was like, that baby is dead. Hey everybody, welcome to ANECDOSED. People ask Reddit. What is the most mysterious/paranormal thing you've witnessed? Number 1. Commenter. My father passed away last year. One item he always said he wanted me to have was a shotgun, which had originally belonged to his grandfather. For years he had this shotgun stashed in the attic. After he passed, I had gone in the attic to look for it, only to find that it wasn't there. A few months later, I had a dream in which I was talking to him and I asked him where he had put the shotgun. He told me it was in the closet of a spare bedroom. I called my mother and had her check, and sure enough that's where it was. Now it's completely possible that my father had told me that when he was alive, and the dream was little more than a memory, but I certainly don't recall that being the case. Person B. It probably was. I met a friend at university and studied with her for 4 years. One night I had a dream that I bumped into her in a mall in Canada and she fell over. Surely enough, I had bumped into someone in a Westfield mall in Vancouver. It was real and I thought I had merely replaced that person I had bumped into with my friend. When I told her about it, she recalled the event, and we found out that we actually bumped into each other on the other side of the world 3 years before we actually met in university. Weird, huh? Number 2. My mom told me this story the other day and it freaked me the FK out. When my oldest sister was little, like 3, she asked my then pregnant aunt to pick her up to hold her. My mom said she was like, "She can't pick you up, honey, she has a baby in her tummy." And then my little sister was like, "That baby is dead." My mom freaked out, but my aunt and grandma were fine and were telling my mom it was all good. She was just a toddler and didn't know what she was saying. Well, lo and behold, my aunt goes to the doctor the next day for a routine pregnancy checkup and the baby was dead. Give me the willies just thinking about it. Number 3. Commenter. Scariest moment of my life happened while my friend and I were camping in eastern Canada as teenagers. We decided to sleep in this abandoned camper we found deep in a large forest that was near our town. It had been there so long that small trees had grown around it. We'd stumbled across it when we were exploring a few months back and thought it would be cool, and brave, to sleep there for a night. So one weekend we did it. We arrived after dark because we had gotten lost trying to find the camper. We had a really low power flashlight, so it made it even more difficult. Once we finally found it, we opened the rusty door and stepped in. The sounds inside the camper were shrill and echoey. There were typical camper things strewn about, Cop's empty can soul in Pulp Fiction novels. Already tired, we holed up in one end of the camper where the bed area had originally been before the cushions had rotted away to almost nothing. A long hallway stretched the length of the camper so we could basically see from end to end. It was a miserable night. There were several rats living there. I saw them staring at us from a chewed out part of the ceiling. When the wind blew outside, the camper would shriek and groan. We even thought we heard a bear outside too, walking around. Still, we feigned bravery and acted like we were having a good time. But we were on edge. At some point I woke up from an uncomfortable sleep. I sat up to adjust myself when I noticed some movement out of the corner of my eye. At the other end of the camper, there was a small window, and as I looked at it I saw a man's silhouette. He was clearly staring straight at me from outside. At first I thought maybe it was a weird shape of a tree or something. But when I moved a bit to get a better look, the person clearly reacted and then froze. My heart was pumping and I woke up my friend immediately, saying someone is here over and over and over in a whisper, not taking my eyes off his profile. He woke up immediately and I nodded towards the window. He saw him too. We whispered frantically about who it could be and why he was staring at us. And for the next 10 minutes, no joke, we stared at him down. The longer we stared at him, the more frightened we got. Occasionally he would move, but always keeping his eyes locked on us. Eventually I shouted at him, "Hey!" No reaction. My friend was braver than me and decided to shine the flashlight at him. As soon as he did, we realized our horrible mistake. It wasn't a window at all on the other side of the camper. It was a mirror. We had been staring down ourselves from the very start. Completely idiotic. Still, it was the most fearful, relieving and funny moment of my life that I'll never forget. Closest to paranormal I've ever been. Person B. I love this story for the fact that during those 10 minutes, there was no effectual difference between what you experienced, reflection in the mirror, and the actual thing, person staring at you from outside. Therefore, you were able to genuinely experience that terror and fear as if there was someone/thing outside, with the added relief of it turning out to be false. Things like this allow me to appreciate how subjective reality really is. Number 4. I saw a shadow person once. I didn't know that's what it was called until much later. I was living in a house in Laguna Beach that had been there since the 1920s. In its history, it had been a speakeasy, a brothel and a house for smuggling illegal immigrants. One day, my new wife and I were having an argument. I can't even recall what it was about. She walked down the block to get a cup of coffee and cool off, and I was alone in the house. The way the place was built was incredibly haphazard. There was a bedroom and living room on one side, then a bathroom with 2 entrances. On the other side of the bathroom was a hallway that had windows in one side and 2 bedrooms on the other. From my bedroom, I could look across the hall into the bathroom, then through the bathroom and down the other hall. I was standing at my dresser, and I just noticed movement out the corner of my eye, and looked down there. There was. And honest to God, this gives me goosebumps just typing it, 17 years later, a black figure. It was maybe 3 feet tall, and it was only vaguely humanoid. It looked like black scribbles, like someone had scribbled a human shape, but the scribbles moved, like electricity arcing. That's the best way to describe it. There was no sound that I could remember. I distinctly remember when I saw it I wasn't afraid, just like, WTF? Then it noticed me looking at it. I can't say it turned around, it just focused on me I guess. Then I was scared. I didn't move, didn't scream, nothing, I was just frozen, because it just fucking came at me, it rushed down the hall towards me. I have no idea what it intended, but as soon as it entered the bathroom, the door closest to me just slammed shut on it. Then I screamed. I yelled for my wife. She wasn't home. I went the FK outside, into the daylight, and didn't go back in until she got home about 10 minutes later. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe I saw something supernatural, but I know I saw something. I don't know what it was. Number 5. Commenter. I was trying to sleep in my room back when I was younger and lived with my folks. I must have been maybe 17 or 18. I opened my eyes while rolling over to get comfortable, and I see a black figure just outside my door, who I thought was my stepfather in the dark, with his hands up by his chest making scary finger motions at me like you might do sarcastically after a scary story, or a witch might do when casting a spell, just moving fingers wildly in my direction. I should note that this figure had no defined shape. It looked like squiggles that moved in a vague shape, and I chalked it up to the lack of light and my stepfather. Well, I look over and say, "What the hell are you doing?" Thinking it was a really stupid, creepy thing to do at night. Well, in that moment it vanished. Just gone. It was at that moment my heart sank and I became petrified with fear. One of the few moments I was scared out of my mind and couldn't comprehend what I just saw. My family suggests sleep paralysis, hypnagogia. I've had it before and still get it now and then. This was not it. Although I have written off quite a few other things that were easily attributed to this. Person B. I was probably 11 or 12, and never really had any belief in the supernatural, aliens, etc. Around roughly 5 a.m. I was sleeping on my bottom bunk at the end of our hallway when a shadow figure about the height of my dad was standing in the doorway, not doing anything, just standing. I could hear my grandmother, who watched us at the time, in the basement, and I could vaguely remember my dad leaving about an hour earlier. I closed my eyes twice, opened them, and just started with a squint so it looked like I was sleeping. Eventually I was so scared I just closed my eyes and secretly hoped it was all some weird dream. I couldn't sleep, but soon after I heard dresser drawers slamming very loud in our spare bedroom. All of a sudden my grandma runs upstairs and tells me to quit making so much noise. I tell her what's up, she opens the spare bedroom door and there's nothing there. No possible way to escape either, a second-story window with the screen still intact. Number 6. I was laying in my bed, the room door in front of me, wide open, and to the left. I could see the room where the front door was. There was an antique cabinet that my dad had that illuminated a white glow. I started to freak out for no reason, and started sweating. I for some reason knew shit was about to happen, and I was about to witness something. About 5 minutes later, laying hot in sweat, I fucking saw it. There was a door in the back of the room with the front door, that was storage. A black outlined humanoid figure walks out, mildly static looking rare. It took a few steps towards the front door then stopped. Does a military-like turn facing me? At this point I'm freaking the shit out, eyes wide. It walks into my room and stops beside my bed. Does one more military turn facing me? At that point I figured, what have I got to lose? I noped the F out and ran through the thing, ran upstairs to my parents' bedroom and knocked furiously at the door waiting to let me in. Eyes focused on the stairs making sure it wasn't to follow me. Nothing. I slept with my parents for the next few nights. One of the scariest things that happened to me as a child. I have a couple more different stories but I'm at school right now and can't write them all. Also, someone mentioned that a professor at a university, calling them the scariest FS, said that these guys do in fact feed off negative energy. At the time, I think I can recall my parents fighting. Not sure if it was a significant enough fight to really send my negativity through the roof. Number 7. I woke up one morning to mom yelling down the stairs for me to get up. It was a school day. I had a shower, came back to my room and sat on my bed, sluggishly slipping my school uniform on. This is where the shit goes down. As I was pulling up my socks, I noticed a flash outside my door more toward the room with the front door. Not the bright camera type flash, but more like an invisible person walking past super fast past my door. For those of you that played Halo, it looked like someone walking around with the invisibility cloak but real fast past my door. You can still see them but not entirely. I saw this from the corner of my eye and began to freak out. I went upstairs to eat breakfast and I remember how scared I was. I sat there staring down at the table as I ate my cereal. My mother asked what was up and I looked up at her with a straight face and said something along the lines of I saw a flash by the door downstairs. Something walked past my door. I said this calmly with a straight face, and now that I look back on this I must have looked like the classic creepy kid. My mom replied with it's all in your head. I went back to eating and she went in the laundry room behind the kitchen, and that's when it happened again. I was eating when I saw another flash of an invisible person walk past the kitchen door. This time I was paralyzed. As in, I stopped chewing and now staring straight down at the table. These furs are playing with me. My mom walks in, stops, sees my reaction and again, I calmly say it just did it again, over there pointing at the kitchen threshold. I tell my mom something is playing with me, and I'm not imagining things. What really relieved me but freaked me out at the same time was her reply I know. It relieved me because she believed me but freaked me out because she basically confirmed their existence. About 10 seconds later, we both heard someone walking down the stairs, wooden, so creaking can be heard, very slowly. I remember thinking to myself that it sounded as if their cover is blown and they're trying to sneak out. My mom and I both looked at each other and once we heard it stop, she looked around the corner down the stairs. Nothing. Dad had already left for work. What the actual F? Make sure to share your personal story in the comments below and have the opportunity to be featured in a future video. Also, if you like these topics don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button to continue seeing more content like this every day. See you next time. Warning, this content may be disturbing to some audiences. Subscribe, if you dare. My college girlfriend cheated on me with her boss during an internship, but got busted after trying to arrange a sleepover with him while talking to me on a webcam. Hey everybody, welcome to ANECDOSED. People ask Reddit. Cheating in a relationship, how did you catch them, how did you get caught? Number 1. The first time I found out was when my girlfriend had a roommate that turned out she was effing for rent and cocaine. The second time was right after my girlfriend moved in with me in a pretty bold move as she was without any place to stay. She effed the bartender she worked with 2 weeks after that. I forgave her, and then months later she went out and kissed friends of mine and sat on their laps while I was home asleep because I had to work the next day. I broke up with her then. The third time the girl I was dating was secretly dating a hippie behind my back. I am glad she cheated on me. She turned out to be a real bad person. The fourth time I was seeing a girl for about 6 months. I saw her in a picture on Facebook at a restaurant with a guy. She denied that she was at dinner and they were just part of a big group. I found out who the guy was and called him. They had been dating for 5 months. She had sex with both me and him unprotected. Before you say it, yes, I'm a dumbass. I learned my lesson however and live with 2 cats. Number 2. My, now ex-wife was spending a lot of time with her sister off drinking, partying, etc. Looking at the phone bill I saw a ton of text messages to and from one number but couldn't get the actual messages, and I knew something was up. I got her a special present, a BlackBerry phone, and, look honey, it's hooked up to the server at home so we can share calendars, etc. I was able to get every inbound and outbound text. Use this info to interrupt her having sex, in my house. With some dude. Divorce filed immediately thereafter. Bought cheating bitch a BlackBerry hooked up to a best server at home, instant full logging of all text messages. Number 3. Dated someone for 7.5 years, and she dumped me one night, February 6th, with no notice, no discussion, no options but begging to remain friends because she couldn't imagine me not in her life. About 6 weeks later, she pops out an email saying she is dating another guy. But 3 years later, she writes a note on her Facebook page celebrating her 3-year anniversary with her new boyfriend, now fiancé. She lists the anniversary date as January 26th. Caught by her own Facebook entry. Number 4. She got a second job bartending so we could put in hardwood floors to replace the carpet the 2 dogs, 2 cats and her 2 kids had destroyed. When she started, she'd get home around 2:30, 3 o'clock Amish. This slowly started getting later and later, so sometimes she'd walk in at 6:30, change her clothes, and head off to her day job. I started getting paranoid when she wouldn't need a nap after working all night, and then all day. I mean, she had to sleep somewhere. The final breaking point was her daughter's 15th birthday. She was having a slumber party, and had 5 or 6 friends over. House was full of screaming teenage girls, so I was hiding out, trying to stay out of the way. The phone rings, and she disappears outside. She comes back in, saying it's her work, and she has to go in. On her daughter's birthday, in the middle of the party. Great. She tells her daughter, who obviously flips out. She heads into work, and her daughter and her friends bolt out the door. So now I'm driving around in my big black work van, trying to find 6 to 15-year-old girls. Not as fun as it sounds. Finally get everyone home and movie watching, and go to bed. She strolls in at 6:30, changes her clothes, and heads to her day job. In the process of getting ready, she had dumped the contents of her pockets on the bed. When I woke up, I grabbed a slip of paper she had left. It was a receipt. For 2 packs of smokes, she didn't smoke, a bag of Reese's Pieces, and 2 bottles of wine from 11:30 the night before. Every part of me wanted to go into a blind rage. But I loved those kids. There was no way I could put them through that. So I didn't mention it, and kept my game face up until Monday. As soon as she had left for work, and the kids had gone to school, I packed everything I owned into my van, and left. Never saw her or her kids, or our dogs or my cat ever again. Went and lived in the back room of a friend's motorcycle shop for 6 months. It kills me that the kids probably hate me, but I'd rather have them hate me than know their mother was a cheating whore. Number 5. Commenter. My girlfriend of 2 years during college decided to take a summer internship in a company about 700 miles away from where we lived together in college. Neither of us had a ton of money, so visiting each other often was out of the question. Being that we grew up in the age of technology, we opted for webcams instead. Again, reverting back to the broken college student part, we bought cheap webcams because, well, they were cheap. The audio on the webcam sucked, so we would go on MSN or something similar, mute the webcam and then just talk over the cell phones. It was nice at first, being able to see the person you were talking to, but about 2 months into the internship, things started to change. So, one night while I was talking to her on the phone, she said she had another call and put me on hold. Well, being kind of suspicious at this point in time, like I said, you could tell things had changed. I turned the volume up on the computer and saw that she had not muted her microphone, and I could hear her side of the conversation that went something like this. "Girlfriend, no, I can't come over right now, I'm talking to Chris." That sounds like a good fake name for me. "Girlfriend, I don't care that your wife is away, I'm not sleeping in your bed." "Girlfriend, just come over here, we can F and then you get back home before your wife notices." "Girlfriend, just bring him over too then." Referring to his 1-year-old son. Well, at that point in time, I am still on hold, but I type something into MSN like, "I need to talk to you now" or something like that, and she hangs up with him. Well, needless to say, I found out that my girlfriend of 2 years was sleeping with her boss that just had a kid. His wife didn't know, until I called her about 2 weeks later after drinking one night. Anyways, being the stupid kid I was, I thought I could fix it with money, flowers, etc. And looking back, I'm so thankful that it did not work, as my wife, different girl obviously, and I just celebrated our 1-year anniversary last month. My college girlfriend cheated on me with her boss during an internship, but got busted after trying to arrange a sleepover with him while talking to me on a webcam. She was still offered a job there after graduation. Person B. How did you told the wife? Commenter. When she confessed, she told me his name, the guy that she was cheating on me with, so I googled the company she worked for and found out his last name. I knew what department he was in because he was her boss. So, one night after drinking with my buddies, we googled his name and found out his home address and phone number. So, I called, from my buddy's phone, and it went about like this. Him, hello. Me, hi, may I speak with Nancy? Him, yes, can I tell her who's calling? Me, yes, my name is Chris, we're friends from high school, she'll know who I am. Silence. Nancy, phone. Her, hello. Me, you should probably tell your husband to get tested, I'm pretty sure he spent the last couple months effing my girlfriend. Number 6. Came home from working and late and found the other girl's truck parked in my spot on the driveway. I'd suspected it for months but hadn't been able to prove it. He didn't know I was coming home as early as I got there, I guess. The guy and I own the house together, having been dating 3 years. Went inside, found her and my, now, ex-boyfriend naked in the guest room with boots on the floor. Yes, I live in Texas, still drunk, telling me it's not what IT looks like. I ran out, grabbed her keys off the counter and threw them down a storm drain right outside our driveway. Came back in and found them very hungover trying to get dressed and telling me to calm down. He told me they did it in the guest room because they were drunk and thought I was sleeping in our bedroom and didn't want to disturb me. Seriously, I'm not making this up. I walked over and slugged my then boyfriend in the face, told her good luck getting home, as her keys were down the storm drain and she didn't know it yet. Then I left. He ended up marrying that girl a year later, and then getting divorced 6 months after that. And that's my story. Only time I ever punched anyone. Number 7. I had been dating a guy for about a year and a half, so I became very familiar with his friends and coworkers. I became particularly close to a girl named Beth who was dating my then boyfriend's best friend. One night Beth asked me to have a girls' night, which I excitedly agreed to. We went out for coffee and drinks, and she opened up to me about how she was concerned that her boyfriend may be cheating on her. We talked and talked, had a good time. Since we had been drinking, we figured it was best she slept over my house that night. Before we left the bar, though, we ran into my then boyfriend who started acting very cold around me, but not so much around Beth. On the way to my house we texted him to see if he wanted to hang out, mostly due to Beth's persistence. When I arrived back home, I checked my messages, I think on my space, I feel old, and found a confession from my guy informing me that he had slept with Beth a few times while we were together. And there she was, reading over my shoulder going, oh shit, I stayed cool and told her she could still sleep over because I didn't want her driving, but she literally ran out of my house. I should have beat her ass while I had the chance. Number 8. Caught my last girlfriend cheating by taking a bit of a gamble. I'd suspected her effing around with another guy for months, condoms in her room I'd never bought, seeing text messages that weren't completely innocent, not damning, though, her bringing said guy up in random conversation. Basically, I knew it without knowing it. So one night after chatting with one of her friends and finding out from the friend about the guy sleeping over at my GF's place a few months back, during a brief relationship break we had, I felt like I had enough of an inkling to fib a little bit. At this point I call the GF and demand she tells me what happened last week, no more lying. She claimed to have no idea what I'm talking about, and I told her about how one of my coworkers lives in her apartment complex, true, and heard loud sex coming from her room, false. Loud sex? Sounds believable, knowing my ex, but false. She breaks down crying and admits to effing around with the guy even since we got back together dating months back and lying about it every time I brought it up, the idea that I didn't trust her with this guy. She didn't tell me because she didn't want me to find out because it might hurt our relationship. Number 9. I was the one caught. This was 2 exes back, by the way. She's the only girl I've ever cheated on. I was caught in the stupidest way possible. I left my cell phone at her house. I'd had a month-long fling with one of my coworkers about 6 months earlier and she had sent me a few naughty texts/pics. I broke it off because things started getting weird at work and I felt like shit about it. Anyways, months passed. I was an idiot for not deleting those texts and pictures. I'd slept over at her place and I'd woken up late for work and rushed out of the house, leaving my phone on her nightstand. At lunch, I got a phone call and she said that we needed to talk and wouldn't be very specific about anything. I got busy and I forgot about it a few minutes later. As soon as I walked through her door, it was like nuclear winter. I tried to turn it around. Why are you looking at my phone? But that shit was so feeble that I was embarrassed I even brought it up. She dumped me, cut off all contact, deleted me from Facebook and keyed my car at work one day. Make sure to share your personal story in the comments below and have the opportunity to be featured in a future video. Also, if you like these topics, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button to continue seeing more content like this every day. See you next time. Warning, this content may be disturbing to some audiences. Subscribe, if you dare. I got to talking to a random guy who turned out to be a doctor. He noticed a dark patch under my nail and recommended I go get it checked out. It turned out to be skin cancer. Hey everybody, welcome to ANECDOSED. People ask Reddit. People of Reddit, what's one mistake or decision you made that completely altered the course of your life? Number 1. Forgot hamburger buns. Dad died, depressed, was without a job for over a year. Applied at a few different places and heard nothing back. Went to a barbecue at a friend's house and stopped at the store first. We got everything we needed, went out to the car, started packing up and realized we forgot hamburger buns. I go back in the store, I'm walking down the frozen foods aisle and run into an old coworker, who happened to now be a manager at one of the places I applied at, months ago. Chatted it up with him for a little bit, and 3 days later, I got a call out of the blue to come in for an interview at his company he worked at. I've been with the company 18 years, last month, all because of that chance encounter in the frozen food aisle, all because I forgot hamburger buns. Number 2. Was working a dead-end service job in the early 90s. On a day off, I had a couple friends over, and we were bored so we decided to go bowling, which we hardly ever did. But for extra variety also decided to go one suburb over to a different bowling alley than we would normally go to. Bowled a couple of games, and then the next lane over starts filling up with a group. 2 guys I knew from high school are in that group and we get to chatting. One of them works for a software company that needed a phone support guy and he recalled I was into computers. This was 1991 so there wasn't a flood of kids from college looking to get into the industry yet. So he asked me to come in for an interview at the place. Went down 2 days later, got the job, spent 7 years at that company, and now going on 28 years in the tech industry. All with a high school diploma and a basic network evening course that the first company paid me to take a couple of years after I started with them. Number 3. One day my foreman just flat out didn't show up to work. I was vaguely familiar with what had to go on at the site, and who needed to do it, so I just started calling people, and talking to those on site saying I was filling in for him for today. Fast forward a few months and people are saying they greatly prefer me organizing jobs, and management starts giving me jobs of my own. I start getting great reviews from clients and my jobs are making money. Eventually my old foreman gets fired, not because of me directly, but because of some questionable antics and poor performance. Now I'm enjoying a significantly better paying and more fulfilling job. What started as a job to make a bit of money while I figured out what I want to do has turned into something with serious career potential. Number 4. Right out of high school I got a job at a machine shop so I could support myself while I went to school. Did years of working there during the day and going to school at night. It got to the point where I was really good at it, and I liked going into work more than I did going to school, so I just dropped out and made my career machining. This was decades ago before trades were en vogue and in demand, and when everyone said you needed a degree to be successful. So my decision was met with a lot of anguish from family and friends. Even though I was making good money I still felt like I let everyone down until 2008 happened. And I didn't have to worry about work while all my friends with degrees had to flip burgers to make ends meet. Then everyone started to realize that being a tradesman wasn't so bad and my esteem over my career choice improved. Now, I work in the aerospace industry and make a pretty decent living at a gravy job with zero stress. Pretty happy now about how everything turned out. Number 5. A buddy of mine called me up one day to tell me he and his toxic controlling girlfriend had broken up and he wanted to celebrate with a few drinks. At the time, I was living a very antisocial lifestyle, and I almost said no, but something that day told me I needed to get out of the house. So I agreed. Turns out that was the night I'd meet my future wife. When we were reminiscing about that night, my wife said she, too, almost declined going out. Number 6. Said yes to going to the pub. I was on a backpacking trip around Europe. At a hostel in Belfast, this Australian guy who was in the same dorm as me asked if anyone wanted to join him for a drink. Me and a New Zealander tagged along. We had an absolutely epic night in what was then still a city under martial law. Next day we all went in different directions, but I kept in contact with the Australian. At some stage, months later, he mentions that I should come and visit him in Australia. About 6 months later I did. I had a fantastic time, traveled around Australia and liked it so much that I applied for a residency permit. 30 years later I'm still here. It's been absolutely great, but none of that would have happened if I didn't say yes to a few beers all the way back in the 80s. Number 7. Went to meet my bio mom. 8 years later, a crippling disorder, brain damage, and some significant trauma later. Turns out there was a very good reason I was adopted. I got to meet my sisters though, and I'm the uncle to a whole herd of nieces and nephews, and I wouldn't trade that for the world. Makes the damage worth it, honestly. The way their faces light up when they see me and how loved I feel with them is something you can't ever replace. To clarify, I met her 8 years ago. She didn't abuse me for 8 years, she abused me for 2, stalked and harassed me for 2 more, and has been out of my life for 4 years or so, since I got a restraining order. Number 8. I failed an unfailable class at university because I totally flunked studying. I was so sure it is unfailable I didn't study at all. I had to retake the class in which there were group projects. Second time over, I was in a team with this girl. I married her last summer. Number 9. Smoked synthetic cannabis. Mental breakdown, antipsychotics, complete change in my physique and personality. 20 to 30 was a blur. I'm on very low doses of my meds with careful management from my shrink, but I know I will need them for the rest of my life. Lost so many years and experiences that I'll never get back. Stay the hell away from spice, K2, Black Mamba and the like if you value your mind. Number 10. My wonderful 2-year-old daughter was not planned. But thanks to her, I decided to have a vasectomy. I had always had one slightly enlarged testicle due to a mountain biking accident 10 years prior. My urologist had it biopsied because it didn't look right. Turns out I had had testicular cancer for an impossible to determine period of time. 4 rounds of chemo later and I'm perfectly fine. Had I not had my daughter, I would have probably had much worse results years later when it finally made its presence known via pain and had spread into my body. So my daughter technically saved my life, which is knowledge I'm sure she'll use on with great glee during her teenage years when I'm trying to punish her. Number 11. Years ago I was heading to Hawaii in February and I was pasty white. So I decided to go to a tanning salon first to get base tan and not burn in high. The bed was in a mirrored room and I noticed my left testicle was enlarged. Had surgery and radiation and I am fine. So getting a tan saved me from dying of cancer. Number 12. I read the book I, Claudius. Loved it so much I scheduled a trip to visit Italy. While touring the sites, I randomly met an American guy who was an IT guy, like me, for an American school there. A few weeks after coming back to the States, I emailed him and he told me he's getting married and moving back to the States and offered me his old position. 3 months later I was on a plane back to Italy. Lived there for 4 amazing years and made some great lifelong friends. Number 13. Flying into Tulsa from San Diego in 1998, coming home on a 3-week leave from the service, after a 16-month deployment. A few days before, there had been a bad ice storm and the roads were still slick. My wife insisted on picking me up from the airport after I suggested taking a cab home. I didn't want her driving on those slick roads, because there was an 8-mile stretch of country 2-lane road from our house to town, and it could get pretty treacherous, due to minimal maintenance. She refused to drive an old Cherokee Chief that I had at the house and chose to drive her 2WD Ranger pickup. She lost control of the truck and went down a 40 embankment, losing her life in the process. We had a 1-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son at home, that grew up without a mother, and I've spent the last 22 years kicking myself for not simply pissing her off to the point that she wouldn't drive, and I could just make up with her when I got home. I should have argued harder with her or had one of her brothers come and pick me up. I met my new daughter for the first time, with her mother gone. I was basically meeting both my children for the first time, as I had deployed when my son was my daughter's age. Neither knew me, and both were absolutely terrified and confused. I was still obligated to the Corps for another year, but they did right by me. I stayed home on hardship, drew base pay until my ease/discharge, dealing with being a single parent, PTSD, and transitioning to civilian life. The happy ending is that both children had a great childhood, grew up smart, well-adjusted, and successful. Daughter is finishing her master's degree, and my son is a successful electrician raising a young son on his own. There's always a struggle in my mind that I'll always deal with. My wife wasn't going to ever move from Oklahoma, and I planned on being a career Marine, so we would have ended up divorced, no doubt, and I wouldn't have the bond with my children that I do now. I lost the love of my life, but I gained a great relationship with my kids. My children lost their mother, but they didn't have to grow up with an absent father. Life is funny. Number 14. Freshman year I asked some kid in the college dorm's cafeteria if we could sit at his table because all the others are full. Start small talking and he mentions his tuition is free because his dad is military. I'm like, wait. My dad is military and I'm paying? He says that it's because his dad is now disabled. Well, it turns out some of my dad's ailments from military service qualify him as disabled, and guess who got free college after that? And my sister too. They hide the website pretty well, and they definitely don't tell vets about the program for their dependents, so my family never would have known if I hadn't sat down with some random guy. Thanks, guy. Number 15. When I was 27 I missed my usual train to work and had to wait another 30 minutes. So I got to talking to a random guy who turned out to be a doctor. He noticed a dark patch under my nail and recommended I go get it checked out. It turned out to be subungual melanoma, skin cancer. I thought it was a bruise and probably wouldn't have gone to the doctors over it. I never saw him again. Number 16. Ordered a pizza from Domino's. Wound up with the worst case of food poisoning I've ever had. I was essentially bedridden for 3 months and I've since developed severe post-infectious IBS that I've been struggling with for the past 3 years. I'm basically not functional probably 50% of the time. It's essentially destroyed my quality of life, and I'm terrified that I may never have a normal life again. It's taken everything I enjoyed or was passionate about away from me. If I had a time machine, I'd go back in time and stop myself from eating that effing pizza. Make sure to share your personal story in the comments below and have the opportunity to be featured in a future video. Also, if you like these topics, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button to continue seeing more content like this every day. See you next time. Warning, this content may be disturbing to some audiences. Subscribe, if you dare. Showed her the submitted assignment and the web page printout, and her answer was that her son had actually written the Wikipedia entry, so it wasn't plagiarism at all. Hey everybody, welcome to ANECDOSED. People Ask Reddit. For those teachers out there, what are some stories about horrible parents you've had to deal with? Number 1. A student of mine, first grade, came to school every day without a jacket, and when asked about it, he told me his jacket was too small and his family couldn't afford a bigger one. When winter came around, I raided the closet in the front office for a donated jacket for him. He looked out, and there was a brand new jacket with matching hat and mittens in there, so I put them in a box I had laying around, and tucked them in his backpack. They were a little big, so I hoped he'd grow into them. I told him there was a present for him in his backpack, but to wait until he got home to open it, as not to leave him vulnerable to questions and taunting from his classmates. The next day was warmer, so I wasn't shocked to see him without the coat. However, what was shocking was that his mother showed up at pickup in the family's SUV, wearing the jacket. I had to have a talk with the poor guy and arrange for a recess jacket for him that he left in his cubby so his mom wouldn't take another one. Number 2. My mom is a kindergarten teacher, and she had this one terrible student who not only kicked her in the face while she was helping him with his work, but he actually stole her digital camera from her desk drawer. She keeps it at work to take pictures of kids' projects and events and stuff, to share with parents. His parents suggested that my mom shouldn't bend down to help students lest she be within kicking range, and to leave her valuables at home. Number 3. I don't think I have any worse stories. Mostly I notice a lot of trends. Parents are starting to tell teachers not to bother them with details about their child's education. Little Johnny is failing. Why are you calling me about that? I also notice quite a number of parents who don't try to discipline their children at all. I had a student who was doing poorly and was always falling asleep in class. I called the father to notify him about the marks, and to suggest that maybe he needed more sleep. The father said, "What am I supposed to do about that?" It's actually quite a common statement. The parents that bothered me the most were the parents of a boy with special needs. Every day they sent him the same lunch, macaroni with nothing on it. I asked them at the first conference why they did this, and his mom said, "It's not like he'll notice." It was sad because he really did notice. When we had special lunch days he would get so excited about hot dogs or pizza. It's indicative of how they treated him overall. They didn't try to engage or stimulate him at all. The boy with special needs wasn't autistic, he didn't have a preference for macaroni, and the parents were not poor. Number 4. I was one of 4 teachers in a conference with Dee's mother and a school counselor. I was the last of the teachers to talk, but I said much the same as the other teachers. Dee skips class all the time, yells out constantly, never does his work, and regularly calls you over to ask questions before farting. Dee was awful. Who behaves like that in 10th grade? Anyway, after all 4 of the teachers said essentially the same thing, Dee's mom looked at the counselor and asked, "I don't understand why all these teachers lied to my son." Number 5. Not from a classroom. So far I have no nightmare parents I've had to directly deal with from teaching practicums. I had this one parent of a kid in my Girl Guide unit who was just awful. When we first met her kid, she would always ask questions about everything, didn't listen to instructions, and would then ask questions about everything she missed, and was generally clueless. Then we met her mother and it all made sense. The first time we met her she tried to sell us life insurance. That was her job, and in the first 5 minutes of talking to her she started about 4 topics yet never finished any of them. She drove around in an uninsured car, the irony, and would often offer to pick up/drop off other people's kids as well. She was also always late for everything, last to drop off, last to pick up. Here's where the story gets even worse. I guess she used to homeschool her kids, scary to think about. In grade 1 she put her kid in public school. Every time she had a problem with the school her kid attended, she pulled her kid from the school and moved her to another school. It got to the point where the kid had gone to 4 different schools in less than a year. Her learning was severely behind, and it was hard to make and keep friends. I feel so sorry for whatever poor teachers had to deal with this mom. Number 6. I was a humanities teacher briefly. Had a meeting with the mother of a boy due to his ongoing behavior problems in class. Bright kid, very creative, just couldn't stop distracting some of his classmates. No biggie really. Mom brought our meeting to a premature end by announcing reading is for fags and storming out of the room, yanking her kid along behind her. Number 7. My mom is a special education teacher. She had a parent-teacher meeting with the parent of a severely disturbed young man with multiple problems. During the conference, the mother casually asked, "I'm not really sure, but do you think that maybe the reason my son has so many problems is because I smoked meth every day while pregnant with him?" The whole room was in stunned silence for about 30 seconds, before my mom piped up with "Yes." Number 8. Most laughable experience I've had was with a plagiarism case. Kid had ripped his entire essay off the net. I'd googled a few sentences from his assignment and found the page he got the stuff from, printed it out so the kid could see that the 2 copies were word for word. He vehemently denied it, so got his mom in for an interview. Showed her the submitted assignment and the web page printout, and her answer was that her dopey 15-year-old son had actually written the Wikipedia entry on the Treaty of Versailles, so it wasn't plagiarism at all. Nothing like supportive parents. Number 9. I could list all of the terrible phone calls, conferences, and emails where parents blame everything except their child's actions for the reason they are in trouble. They are so numerous, I can't even begin to count them. The one that is different from all of those, and the only one like it that I have encountered, was with one of my AP English students. Typical parent-teacher conference. AP parents were flying in and out, since almost all the kids are doing well. This one super sweet girl and her mother come in and sit down. I tell them she has a 99% in the class. 99% total. As in an A+. Without missing a beat, the mom looks at her daughter with a big-time attitude and says, "What can we do to get that up to a 100? My mouth dropped. I said, "Well, we still have half a semester, so there is time for extra credit," and then I made the mistake of adding, "But you know, a 99 is really great." That was a mistake. The mom jumps out of her chair and starts yelling at me that I should mind my own business, and that she has high expectations for her daughter, in order to become something more than just a high school teacher. Number 10. I had a student that didn't show up to my class for 3/4 of the year. During parent/teacher night in spring, she came in. I tell her that her kid rarely comes to class and it may be beyond the point of being saved. The mother explains to me that her kid thinks it's too early and that I needed to give up my lunch later in the day to teach her kid so they didn't have to wake so early. I told her that I wouldn't be doing that and that I would buy her kid an alarm clock if it came down to that. She took offense and said that I was being a selfish asshole. Other than that, my students' parents are pretty awesome. Number 11. A story from my friend who's a high school teacher. A student turned in an exam with suspiciously similar solutions to a person near them. From past performance and the seating arrangement, it was clear which one of them was copying. My friend had some other teachers look through the exams to see if they would notice the same thing, which they all did. The student's mother came in and said that the teacher just didn't like her daughter, and was just accusing her of cheating, for that reason. When the principal, or VP, said that several other teachers agreed with the assessment that her daughter had cheated, the mother said, "Well, then the teacher put her next to a good student to force her to cheat so she would get in trouble." Number 12. My mother is a teacher. This is only the worst one, there are more. She was teaching a class in elementary school that had a severely mentally handicapped girl in it. I'm talking constantly drooling, unable to form words, just grunts and moans and yells. She clearly belonged in special ed, but her parents refused. They insisted she be put in a normal class, because she does not need special ed. The classes were completely useless for her, and her noise and mess seriously disrupted the education of 30 other students. The school even had to pay an aide to be with her all day, because she could not take care of herself. When the school finally decided to go ahead and put her in special ed, the parents sued the district. Because their 12-year-old with the mentality of a 3 to 4-year-old did not belong in special ed in their minds. Teachers had to spend their days in court instead of their classes, and my mom had to deal with lawyers and parents telling her she had no idea what was best for their kid. Number 13. My dad is a principal and once suspended a girl for wearing a shirt that showed her whole stomach and then refused to put on another shirt to cover herself up. This was not her first or her worst offense, and he was fed up. The parents come in to discuss the situation. The dad didn't want to believe his daughter should be suspended, so he attempted to lunge at my dad and fight him. I can't remember, but I think the dad ended up getting arrested. My story isn't so bad, but I worked with a parent who was really racist and tried to build a completely ridiculous case about why her son couldn't work with our black instructors. She wouldn't even look at them. Other than that, I'm constantly dealing with parents who are completely in denial about their children's abilities and have insane expectations, which is pretty horrible. Number 14. A friend of my mom's once told me that when she worked briefly as a headmistress, 2 sisters about 7 and 8 years old showed up at school with scars, bruises and blood on their clothes. Police were called and tests were run on the little girls. It turned out they both had been raped several times, possibly by their father. She told me that she didn't know why, but the girls weren't taken away immediately after this. The mom was called to school. The principal told her that she wanted to know what was up with her girls, because they suspected they had been raped by their dad. The mom scoffed and answered, "Well, they better learn from their dad before they learn from some random dude they met on the streets." Every time I remember this story it makes me sick to my stomach. How could someone be so F up and heartless? After this, my mom's friend stopped working as a headmistress, and instead went back to being a teacher. She said that you still get crazy parents from time to time, but at least she doesn't have to deal with them. Number 15. My first, and only, year teaching 8th grade was a doozy. I was 21, and all my energy/excitement about teaching was quickly zapped by parents dead set on proving me incapable of doing my job. I had parents send graded papers back to me with my comments corrected and challenged. One day, I was called into the headmaster's office to discuss my use of foul language in the classroom after a parent learned I had told a kid to stop dorking around. The worst, by far, was a mother who somehow got my cell number and just constantly harassed me at the end of the year because she wanted her child to get a, wholly undeserved, A. This mother had a reputation, but I was in no way prepared for her full-out abuse. When her daughter, whom I had repeatedly suggested receiving some kind of outside academic assistance, ended up with a generous B in the class, she just lost it. I was visiting my sick grandmother when she started texting me, demanding to see the final exams. Being as they were final exams, I was not intending to return them to students. However, this woman had the headmaster so wrapped up in her crazy that he called and requested that I have my landlord open my house door so someone could grab the exams while I was out of town. This is on top of the mom's texting messages like, "You will never work again. And those tests are mine, I paid for them, I want what I deserve." Make sure to share your personal story in the comments below and have the opportunity to be featured in a future video. Also, if you like these topics, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button to continue seeing more content like this every day. See you next time. Warning, this content may be disturbing to some audiences. Subscribe, if you dare. Well, I forgot I even posted it, but a few hours later as I get a call on my cell phone from a blocked number. It was a detective from the Pittsburgh police asking for me by name. Hey everybody, welcome to AskReddit. People ask Reddit. Has anyone on Reddit ever gotten into any real trouble for something they post here? Number 1. I posted a picture of a funny note at work a while back under a different username. It got tons of upvotes, but the paper was on top of something confidential. Some asshole Reddit user decided it would be funny to enhance it and sent me a message letting me know that he knew who I was and where I worked. I deleted the post, deleted that username, and started fresh with little to no mention of my job or where I work. That freaked me out. Number 2. I don't know if I'd call it trouble, but someone was able to figure out who I was. I have posted my picture before as well as details about the city where I live, but nothing else. They Facebook messaged me and threatened to come after me because they didn't like something I said. They were able to tell me where I was earlier that day at a particular time, which I definitely had not posted about, which was kind of creepy. I was scared for all of a day until I realized that they were just bored and trying to freak me out. Nobody ever came for me. Number 3. Yes. It landed me a call with a Pittsburgh police detective. How he was able to figure out my cell phone number and my name from an anonymous Reddit account, I will never know. A few months ago, I posted an image of a funny flyer I saw around my campus, either to our /pics or /funny, I forget. It was advertising a service called Friends of Minors that offered to buy booze for under 21s if they called the number printed on the flyer. Well, the number was the campus police. I knew that, that's why I thought the flyer was funny. I even put it in my title. It was obviously not made by the police, but a joke to get freshmen to call the police station and ask for booze. Well, I forgot I even posted it, but a few hours later I got a call on my cell phone from a blocked number. It was a detective from the Pittsburgh police asking for me by name. He said that I recently uploaded an image on a website called Reddit that sparked a large wave of prank calls to the Pittsburgh police station and was interfering with the police's ability to handle real emergency situations that were occurring around the city that night. He told me I needed to remove that post immediately or alternative action would have to be taken against me. So I removed it immediately, obviously. Side note, it made it to the front page in like 3 hours, wow. But what I couldn't help but wonder is why on earth people would simply see a phone number, and immediately think, I should prank call this. I should prank call a police station. The effing top comment on my post said something to the effect of, alright, guys, you know what to do. Let's flood this police station with prank calls. Then they'll be sorry. What the hell, guys? What the hell? Number 4. Under an anonymous account I posted something about my marriage, looking for advice. The advice I got, because it was a one-sided story, ended with "Your husband sounds like an asshole." My husband is not an asshole. He's a great guy, and he found the post, knew it was mine, and was hurt. He didn't leave me, but his feelings were needlessly hurt. He's a great guy who doesn't deserve that. I immediately deleted the account. My husband's feelings are worth more to me than all the useless internet points. Number 5. After the oil spill in the Gulf, British Petroleum calls me up to ask that I make a series of pro-BP documentaries about how BP is awesome and nothing is really that bad in the Gulf. They offered a lot of money for budget/compensation. I was torn. I effing hated this company. And the shit I was seeing in the Gulf infuriated me. So what did I do? I sought out advice on AskReddit about the pros/cons of taking this job. In the end, it was decided that I at least attend their first meeting to hear what they had to say. My Reddit post went up at 10 p.m. At 9 a.m., I went in to meet the BP folks. They had printed out copies of my entire Reddit thread. Consequently, I left the building fast. And didn't get the job. And I don't regret it at all. Thanks Reddit. Number 6. After a really confusing kind of breakup, I posted to relationships asking for help. Using my real account specifically so she would know it was me if she saw it, I explained the whole situation leading up to it. They all went off on how much of a terrible person she is and how I should run far away and I should have never stuck my dick in crazy. A few hundred comments worth, I was front page. Some pretty specific insults towards her too. She saw it, she read it, she realized it was her. She felt terrible. I felt almost as bad that she had to see what people had to say. She wasn't a bad person and I can't explain the feelings when I got that text from her. We saw each other a few times after that, shared our I love yous and goodbye kisses, but I never got to apologize. Allie, if you're out there, I got over hating you, you only meant well. All the best to you in your life. Thanks for the memories and experiences. I hope you and your husband are doing better and that he doesn't still want me dead. Number 7. I posted a rant on how my ex-now-girlfriend's mother was an outright bitch and how much I hated her, was relevant to a topic, and I mean I tore her apart in this post describing how she treats me, her daughter, and everyone around her. Well, my then girlfriend ended up wanting to be cute and beat my karma score, so she started up a Reddit account randomly without me knowing and searched up my account. I use StageMW for everything I go on. And she saw that post. Did I mention she's my ex? That's relevant to this topic. Number 8. This year on Reddit I posted a picture of me holding a log of poop and some bottles of urine in my closet fort. All of the pictures have since been deleted from Reddit to save my identity further, but the damage has already been done. Fast forward 3 months. I'm talking to a friend via IRC when I link to my GitHub programming repository page. From there he finds my blog, Google+, school schedule, teacher, and the school email address of my teacher and posts most of the information in the IRC channel. The next day my programming teacher asked who had been emailing him asking about Black Joe, my IRC nick, and mailing him inappropriate pictures, threatening suspension. Thankfully none of the images had my face in it, and I was never caught, but I came really close to being in deep shit. Number 9. Several months ago, I got the feeling that one of my best friends was reading all my Reddit posts without telling me. In order to catch him, I made a post in some AskReddit thread, only expecting it to be seen by him. Instead, it caught like wildfire and ended up with like 300 upvotes. I only did it because my friend got into some embarrassing situations when his internet identity clashed with real life, and I wanted to avoid the same problem without having to delete my account. Well, I used some pretty harsh language in the post and of course he saw it. He got kinda upset and said I was overreacting about the whole thing, but I didn't back down. I still think he was being a nosy bastard for reading my shit. Anyways, we're still good friends, but that little incident put some temporary strain on our friendship. Not sure if he still reads my posts or not, we don't really bring it up anymore. Number 10. My now ex-girlfriend found out about my account and saw that I had spoken about her, anonymously of course, on the internet. She got pretty mad at me and I got pretty mad at her for snooping on me like that. She said something like, "Most of the stuff you say is really funny," which really made me mad since it indicated she had been monitoring my activity. Reddit is sometimes like a personal journal to me and it's not really meant to be known to the people who are actually in my life. I doubt she still reads my account, but she still knows this one and could easily be reading this right now. Number 11. I posted a link to a friend's FB of a post I made on Reddit, and my ex-girlfriend saw, and read through like months and months of my comments/submissions. There was one from a long time ago that says something like, "My roommate's girlfriend annoys me slightly." She told her, and I got yelled at. Wasn't too bad, though. Me and my former roommate's girlfriend are really close now. Number 12. I posted a picture of my workplace and the general manager from across the country saw it and reported it to the corporate and my general manager. I was supposed to be fired that night, but because of the people I work with I wasn't. I won't post any details as I don't want them finding out. Deleted my account and the post. Good thing I kept my job because I got into an accident recently and have to pay $3,400 in repairs. Without that job I'd be screwed. I only make minimum wage. Number 13. I made a post after a fight with my girlfriend about how ignorant she was and how her parents kind of sucked at being parents. Now, she is not an ignorant person in general, I was just mad at the time. And her parents aren't shitty, but they were definitely being shitty that week. Anyway, she saw that I was signed into Reddit but didn't know I had an account. She found my post history, read that comment, and a shitstorm ensued. She thought that I thought she was stupid. False. She thought I hated her parents. Very much false. She was also pissed that I told the world about these problems, even though no one on Reddit knows who I am, and therefore no one knew who I was referring to. That was a stressful couple of days. Number 14. I posted a photo of my sister's and I took as a Christmas gift for my mom. 1 hour later it was the number 2 post on Reddit. 1 day later it was on Mashable. Someone saw it there and posted it to my Facebook. Mom saw it. Christmas present ruined. Number 15. I was fired from my last job for looking at Reddit at work. I was not even looking at anything NSFW as I had a NSFW filter turned on in Rees to avoid accidentally hovering over a NSFW link. When I was brought into a room they accused me of streaming Pandora using business bandwidth. I told them that that was not a fireable offense considering half of the employees I knew did it. Then, due mainly to ignorance, they said I was viewing sites with pop-ups and was exposing the company to malicious software/malware. I was using Hover Zoom to view Ember links. Then they finally said I looked at something that made the new girl training in the same cube with me so uncomfortable she couldn't stand to be in the same building as me. When I asked them to provide me evidence they told me I needed to clean out my desk and leave the premises. Was walked out by a security person. They waved their hand in my face when I tried to say anything to defend myself. They offered me no warning and never told me exactly what I was being fired for. Number 16. I made a comment on the thread a while back asking girls what the most shameful thing they'd ever done was. I knew that at least 2 of my friends were Redditors and knew I was too, but I didn't know that they remembered my username. It's something I use a variant of for any personal account names these days, but the ones I had back then were all spelled differently. Long story short, friend 1 got bored one day and decided he'd check out my account. Lo and behold, my highest rated comment was the one from that fateful thread. The next time he saw me, he could not stop laughing. What I'd said wasn't a particularly shameful thing for a girl to do and far from uncommon, but it's not exactly information you share publicly with someone you're not intimate with. Luckily, things aren't quite as awkward anymore. They were for a while though. Number 17. A buddy of mine was one of those guys who used the same username everywhere and posted something about how he hated being in boring meetings like the one he was in, but they didn't know he was posting on Reddit. Right below it, the CEO posted something like, "Well, if you're so bored in meetings here, let's have a chat with HR." He hurriedly deleted his post and the CEO deleted his post shortly thereafter, but they did have a very nice chat with HR where HR gave him a little box with all his personal items in them. Make sure to share your personal story in the comments below and have the opportunity to be featured in a future video. Also, if you like these topics, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button to continue seeing more content like this every day. See you next time.